Welcome to BUD 403 Profiles of Buddhist Leadership. And today we are into the week 8, and we are going to talk about contemporary Buddhist leaders. Um, Under this, I want to talk about a little bit history of Sri Lanka first. And Sri Lanka is located very close to Indian Ocean, South India, and also its strategic location just next to in close proximity to the international shipping line, and also its very rich natural resources have attracted many maritime traders from all over the world from the ancient past. It's very rich in biodiversity, and it's a small island, but very rich in many different cases. And ever since it was introduced by Buddhism in 3rd century BC, Sri Lanka was flourishing with Buddhism for so many centuries. And it was more than 1500 years. It was very well established. Buddhism was very well established in Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka became the headquarters of Theravada Buddhism. And in 1505, Portuguese came to Sri Lanka. So this is the first ever um, European invasion to Sri Lanka. So during this colonial period, from 1505 to 1948, Sri Lanka was ruled by 3 European nations: Portuguese, Dutch, and English. And so this is like almost 450 years. And Sri Lanka was, of course, attacked many times, invaded by many times by the South Indian kings and rulers, but it was not under one rule for a longer time. It was always, there were a lot of other kings in Sri Lanka, and somehow they got their control back. Although there were constant fightings between the two countries, Sri Lanka remained independent for so many centuries. And then came Portuguese, and then 1505 up till around 1656 something. Then Dutch came, and then 1790s, Dutch was overtaken by British, and 1815 there was a treaty convention signed between the then Sri Lankan rulers and the British colonial secretaries, and then it was kind of under their rule. And during this period, more European influence was there in Sri Lanka, and the influence of European nations was much more. And this includes the Christianity. Ever since Buddhism was introduced to Sri Lanka was mostly, predominantly, and overwhelmingly Buddhist country. There were some Hindus also, because there were some Tamil people, and so they were here in Sri Lanka, but Christianity was introduced during the colonial period. And then one day, Venerable Migettuwate Gunananda, he was from down south, Sri Lanka, and he was born on February 9th, 1823 to a Buddhist family. And then he was involved in a number of debates with the Christian Catholic priests because he read the news that Buddhist monks in Colombo can go out and they would always be embarrassed with some sarcastic remarks by the Christian people, and then he thought of coming back to Colombo from down south, and then he settled in a temple called Tipadutra Ramya in Colombo. And then he started arguing, debating, criticizing the Christian church of what they were doing. And then there was a famous debate taken place, public debate between the Christians and the Buddhists. And there were 5 major debates that Venerable Gunananda was involved. Baddegama, Unanvita, and Gampola, and Varaguda, Leengemulla, and Panadura. So quite a few debates, and they were very famous, and lots of Buddhist people were very enthusiastic about these. And so towards the second half of the 19th century, these debates were taking place, and then they were given wide publicity. And there was a newspaper article written on this, and in America, there was one person who read this news, and that was Colonel Henry Steele Olcott. And when Colonel Henry Steele Olcott read this thing, and he immediately wanted to come to Sri Lanka, and he wanted to meet Venerable Gunananda. And then he came to Sri Lanka in 1880s, and then he was he had a meeting with Venerable Gunananda, and he did so many good things to uplift Buddhist education in Sri Lanka. So he was one of the pioneers of Buddhist education in the recent past, Colonel Henry Steele Olcott. And during that time, there was another young boy. He was when Venerable Gunananda started these things, and Anagarika Dhammapala, and who became another wonderful leader who spearheaded Buddhist revival in India. He wanted to rescue Buddhist places, heritage places, from the clutches of Hindu captivity. And then he was fighting for that. And during this time, when Venerable Gunananda was working very hard, debating with the Christians and to protect the Buddhist rights. And that time, Anagarika Dharmapala was just 9 years old, and he was very inspired by all these speeches, and also he was working later on with close proximity with Colonel Henry Steele Olcott and all. And so there was quite a remarkable Buddhist revival during this time because of this. So Buddhism had a downside that time because of this, and finally Buddhism came back strongly following Venerable Gunananda's heroic debates with the Christian community. And so this person is very important in the Sri Lankan history in the modern context. And Anagarika Dharmapala was born in 1864, September 9, and he died in 1933, April 29. And he actually lately he became a monk, and before that he was from a very influential family, very rich family in Sri Lanka, and then he dedicated his whole life uh, because he wanted to revive Buddhism. He wanted to sacrifice his life for the to upgrade the Buddhism, and so he even changed his name from a Christian name initially he had, although he was from a Buddhist family, but he had a Christian name, Don David Heva Vitarana, and later he adopted the name called Dharmapala, Dhammapala or Dharmapala. So he also became. He did not want to get married, so he was called Anagarika. He was living like a monk, but not a monk. He was still not shaving heads and all. And then he was living like a lay person, but he did not want to get married. He was totally dedicated to improve the quality of Buddhism. And when he went to India, he really wanted to take care of those Buddhist places because he found those Buddhist places, especially Buddha Gaya, the heart of Buddhism, was totally occupied by the Hindu priests. And then he was fighting so hard. He was uh, filing some cases against a lawsuit against those, and then he had many troubles, harassments. He was persecuted so much. He was embarrassed and even house arrested sometimes, but he never stepped back. He kept fighting, and eventually he could claim the Buddhist Buddha Gaya management committee should be dominated by Buddhists, and somehow his struggle became very fruitful, and even today, lots and lots of people visit these Buddhist sites, including Buddha Gaya and Sarnath, Varanasi, all those places. He was involved in these places. And then he tried to promote the Buddhist pilgrims to visit those spiritually important places for Buddhists. And so he became a hero. And in India, he also established a very powerful institute called Mahabodhi Society of India in 1830s, in 1890s, and then he even today Mahabodhi Society of India is functioning very strongly. And so Anagarika Dharmapala is another important character. And even Venerable uh, after Venerable Gunananda, and there were other monks and in Sri Lanka, and Venerable Hikadwe Sumangala. He was also a very famous monk, and he was also doing so many good things to improve the quality of Buddhist education. And they actually had many wonderful things. And Venerable Sumangala and then other Buddhist monks were doing a remarkable service during that time. And then Venerable Ananda Maitreya, Balanguda Ananda Maitreya, I have met him. I had the good fortune to meet him. He lived 105 years, and then he died somewhere close to 2000, year 2000. And he also has written so many books. And then there is another monk called Venerable Rerukane Chandavimala. He lived 99 years, and he is a tremendously influential monk. He trained in Myanmar, and then he came back to Sri Lanka. He wrote so many books in Sinhala language to help Buddhist people understand Buddhism. And all these monks have sacrificed, dedicated their life and energy to preserve and to promote to protect the Buddha Dhamma in Sri Lanka. And eventually those powerful movements actually produce so many other scholarly monks and other lay devotees, and even the rulers of the country have been influenced because of their um, enormous service. So these people are important when it comes to Sri Lanka. Then I will also talk about Mr. A.T. Aryaratna, and Mr. A.T. Aryaratna is another very important figure. Actually, he is still living. I have met him too in Sri Lanka. He's a little old now, not so much active like before. He was born in 1931, November 5, and his Mr. Aryaratna, A.T. Aryaratna, was the founder of Sarvodaya Shramadana movement of Sri Lanka, and a former high school teacher at Nalanda College. He conducted the first Shramadana work camp in 1958, which eventually led to the establishment of the largest non-governmental organization in the country. The father of six distinguished adult children, he has led tens of thousands of family gatherings and meditations with millions of people throughout Sri Lanka and other parts of the world. So, this Mr. A.T. Aryaratna's contribution also is really very important. You can see him as an internationally renowned figure. And few years ago, he visited University of the West. I met him there too. And so he has been awarded many international awards and honorary international appointments and Sri Lankan awards and so many things thanks to his community care work in Sri Lanka. So, and then I would like to turn to the other great monks. We have one monk called Ajahn Chah. This is Venerable Ajahn Chah. He was born on June 17, 1918 in a small village near the town of Ubon Patchatani, northeast Thailand. After finishing his basic schooling, he spent 3 years as a novice before returning to lay life to help his parents on the farm. And again, at the age of 20, he decided to come back to the temple, and he wanted to become a monk again. And in 1939, he received Upasampada, that is a bhikkhu ordination, higher ordination, what we call. And then Ajahn Chah's tradition is really powerful in Thailand. And even today, lots and lots of Ajahn Chah followers, and his amazing teachings. Very simple person he was, and his enormous knowledge in the Dhamma and the capacity to explain, and his spiritual energy has produced so many wonderful monks. And so Ajahn Chah's literature is very widespread, and lots of Western people have trained under him. And although Ajahn Chah did not speak other languages, even very little English he knew, and even his Thai is very. It's not the popular Thai language. It's a regional dialect, but uh, somehow lots and lots of Westerners, they were very touched by his teachings, and many followers were there. And even today, if you go to Meta Forest in San Diego, Venerable Ajahn Ajahn Jeff, or what we call Bhikkhu Thanisaro. He's also from Thai Forest tradition. And in Australia, there is a monk called Ajahn Brahm. Ajahn Brahma Wanso is full name. And this Ajahn Brahm also has trained under Ajahn Chah. So many Western scholars have been produced by Ajahn Chah tradition. So Ajahn Chah's contribution in that case is also really important as a wonderful Buddhist leader. In India, 1950s, there became a man who was very instrumental in reviving Buddhism. And there was a man called Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar. He was born on April 14, 1891 in Maharashtra, and he died on December 6, 1956 in New Delhi. And he was the leader of Dalits. Dalits means scheduled caste, and these scheduled castes also formerly they were called untouchables. And this guy, B.R. Ambedkar, he had a doctoral degree, and he was a very educated person, and he was law minister of the government of India from 1947 to 1951. So he was the architect of Indian constitution, and very important figure he was. And born of a Dalit Mahar family of Western India, he was, as a boy, humiliated by his high caste school fellows. His father was an officer in the Indian Army, and he got a scholarship. Uh, and then he studied at the universities in the US, Britain, and Germany. And then he entered the Baroda Public Service at the Gaikwad's request, who actually provided him a scholarship before to study. And then he soon established his leadership among Dalits, and he founded several journals on their behalf and succeeded in obtaining special representation for them. And in 1947, Ambedkar became the law minister of the government of India, and then he also took a leading part in the framing of Indian constitution. Uh, India received independence from Britain in 1947. Um, and so during that time, he was already part of the government and also holding very powerful positions in the government. And then uh, he took part in he took a leading part in the framing of the Indian Constitution. He was the architect of Indian Constitution, Dr. D.R. Ambedkar, and outlawing discrimination against the untouchables and skillfully helped to steer it through the assembly. He resigned in 1951 from them in despair uh, because of the um, problem, harassment that he noticed towards the low caste people. He renounced Hinduism. He was born a Hindu and he became a Buddhist together with 200,000 fellow Dalits at a ceremony in Nagpur. So this is a very, very important day for all these scheduled caste people in India. Ambedkar's book, The Buddha and His Dhamma, appeared after his death in 1957, and it was republished as The Buddha and His Dhamma, a critical edition in 2011. And so many books and literature were written by him, and so many things happened, and he was regarded as a deity, as a god, even though those people, um, the Dalit people, the low caste people, when they became Buddhist and they started worshipping him like a god, and they wanted to respect him in parallel to the Buddha, then they actually kept Ambedkar's photo frame on their altar along with the Buddha. And they were so much grateful and thankful to this man for showing them a remarkable liberation from the grip of high caste Hindu people in India. So ever since, many millions of Indian low caste people, they turn to Buddhist, and they are really thriving as of now. And in Nagpur, India, there is that land is called Diksha Bhumi, where Ambedkar became a Buddhist, and so that place is having an annual ceremony to mark this very special day by all those um, people in India, those low caste people in India. Right now, those Indian people, although they were poor at the beginning, right now they are actually quite um, well-to-do families, and many of them have also gone abroad and settled, and also economically more powerful and more educated, and all these things happen to them because they were guided by Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. So that is why he is a very powerful person and a very important person for Buddhists, especially very important modern Buddhist leader in India. Okay, and let me go to another very important person, and you know this person. He is Ambedkar, he is the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. His Holiness the Dalai Lama was such an important person today, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama is the most, what we say, can say, most influential Buddhist leader in the world as of today, currently. And he's very well respected by so many millions of people around the world, especially in the Western world. He has a very great respect, and he's very humble, very simple monk, uh, very wonderful, and you must have hopefully heard of him and what Dalai Lama uh, was doing. I think when Tibet was invaded by mainland China, and so Dalai Lama ran away to India, and that time he started settling in Dharamsala. I had the good fortune to meet him in Dalai Lama, in Dharamsala in India some time back, and also um, I had a good fortune to meet him again in America, just a uh, year or two ago, I guess. He came to an Vietnamese temple here to launch a new temple here in Westminster. And yeah, so Dalai Lama is a very important Buddhist leader today. I think I like his simplicity, I like his humbleness, and so many wonderful qualities of this person, Dalai Lama, is really, really remarkable. And wherever he goes, he's attracted by many, many people, and he's he's the 14th Dalai Lama. Okay, so Dalai Lama is supposed to be a reincarnation of the previous one. So this is a very unique tradition among Tibetan people. So I recommend you have a look at these his character, and there are many thousands of videos of Dalai Lama. His uh, his sense of humor and his simplicity and many wonderful things can be fascinating qualities of him to be a great Buddhist leader. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, 14th Dalai Lama, is also called Tenzin Gyatso, and he describes himself as a he describes himself as a simple Buddhist monk, and he's the leader of spiritual leader of Tibet. He was born on 6 July 1935 to a farming family in a small hamlet located in Tuxter, Amdo, northeastern Tibet. At the age of 2, the child, then named Lamo Dondo, was recognized as the reincarnation of the previous 13th Dalai Lama, Thupten Gyatso. And Dalai Lamas are believed to be manifestations of Avalokiteshvara or Chengren Sik, the Bodhisattva of compassion and the patron saint of Tibet. Bodhisattvas are realized beings inspired by a wish to attain Buddhahood, for the benefit of all sentient beings who have vowed to be reborn in the world to help humanity. So Dalai Lama's 14th Dalai Lama in particular, he is a very, very influential person. His education in Tibet and his leadership responsibilities, and he also, especially in Tibet, spiritual leader and the political leader is the same. So Dalai Lama is they are political and spiritual leader both. And yeah, Dalai Lama had a wonderful life, and he had a tough time in exile, and also he was somehow democratization process was taking place, and in Dalai Lama he was ruling as their spiritual leader still. And I think currently Indian government has declared Dharamsala as a Buddhist state. And and in 1987, he, in an address to members of the U.S. Congress in Washington, D.C., His Holiness proposed the 5-point peace plan to Tibet as a first step towards a peaceful solution of the worsening situation in Tibet. And his universal recognition is showcased when he became a man of peace in 1989. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his non-violent struggle for the liberation of Tibet. He has consistently advocated policies of non-violence, even in the face of extreme aggression. He also became the first Nobel laureate to be recognized for his concern for global environmental problems. Dalai Lama has traveled to more than 67 countries, and he has received over 150 awards, honorary doctorates, prizes, etc., in recognition of his message of peace, nonviolence, interreligious understanding, universal responsibility, and compassion. He has also authored more than 110 books. So Dalai Lama's life is really very cool, very nice. So many things for us to learn from this person. And the next one I would like to talk about is Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Vietnamese monk, and he is a Zen master, and also is a global spiritual leader, poet, peace activist, and also renowned for his powerful teachings and best-selling writing on mindfulness and peace. A gentle and humble monk, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called him an apostle of peace and nonviolence, when nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Exiled from his native Vietnam for almost 4 decades, Thich Nhat Hanh has been a pioneer bringing Buddhism and mindfulness to the West and establishing an engaged Buddhist community for the 21st century. So Thich Nhat Hanh, right now, currently he is back in Vietnam. He had a stroke, and somehow he was blessed by so many thousands of his followers, and he was settling in France, and uh, exile from Vietnam. He few months later he actually also um, on men um, he had many things. He also visited US, and mostly he stayed in France, but also he traveled to United States. And his influence as a very kind, very compassionate monk is very important. And a lot of people in the West love his teaching, and his founding Plume village in France also continued to teach, lecture and write on the art of mindfulness and living peace. And in the early 1970s, he was a lecturer and researcher in Buddhism at the University of Sorbonne, Paris. In 1975, he established the Sweet Potato Community near Paris, and in 1982, he moved to a much larger site in the southwest of France, soon to be known as Plume Village. And Thich Nhat Hanh's life and his leadership as a wonderful, compassionate monk who practiced non-violence. And it is estimated that over 75,000 people participate in activities led by Plume Village monks and nuns worldwide every year. And so many things are related to him, and many wonderful services he has done to propagate peace and nonviolence and Buddhist meditation. Um, is Zen Buddhist meditation. He's a Zen Buddhist master. So right now he can talk, but he's still trying to be more active. Although he can talk, he's always surrounded by so many wonderful followers, monks and nuns, and the other people in Vietnam. And yeah, he does so many. I think he has done a wonderful service to Buddhism. Yeah, Thich Nhat Hanh is really important character. And this time I want to talk about a monk from Myanmar. He's called Pauk Sayadaw. Pauk Sayadaw is the founder of Pauk Forest Monastery, Pauk Tawya in Burmese, and it's a Buddhist monastery in the Theravada tradition, with the emphasis on the teaching and practice of both samatha and vipassana meditation. And he founded in 1926. It is situated in a forest along the Taung Nyo mountain range near the village of Paau, 15 kilometers southeast of Maulami, Mount State, Myanmar. This monastery provides a conducive setting for the long-term practice of meditation. The number of residents varies seasonally from approximately 1,000 to 1,800 during festive period. This includes more than 300 foreign monks, nuns and lay practitioners originating from over 20 countries. So Pauk Sayadaw, uh, he was spearheading, and he's still alive, and such a wonderful monk, and also very powerful, very influential monk who has led a world everywhere. He has so many wonderful students who teach meditation everywhere in the world. He used to stay in US some years ago, and because of his health, he had to go back to um, in Myanmar, and he is currently operating from Myanmar. And this monastery is the main center. Pauk Monastery, Forest Monastery, is the main center at the core of the Pauk group, comprising over 40 branches and associate centers in the world. All of the branches and associate centers, 29, are located within Myanmar, including Tanlin, Pa'an, Mandalay, Dawei, Kumei, etc., and the others are located internationally, spread over Sri Lanka, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Nepal, China, Taiwan, and USA. I have attended some of the Pa'auk retreats. We have a Big Bear meditation center. I have visited there several times for a 10 days retreat. And so some of those Pa'auk teachers, meditation teachers, would come there quite often to teach meditation. So Pauk Sayadaw is another very important Buddhist leader today in the contemporary Buddhist world. And then I want to talk about this monk called Mahasi Sayadaw. And Mahasi Sayadaw also is a he's also a Myanmar monk, and along with Pauk Sayadaw, Mahasi Sayadaw also has led a unique tradition in Myanmar. And the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw was born in the year 1904 at Seikun, a large, prosperous, and charming village lying about 7 miles to the west of the historic Shwebo town in Upper Burma. And Mahasi Sayadaw tradition, when he started this unique tradition, and later he became a monk, and his reputation as a skilled meditation teacher has spread throughout the region, and he came to the attention of a devout and wealthy Buddhist, Sir Wu Twing. Wu Twing wanted to promote the Buddha Sasana by setting up a meditation center directed by a teacher of proven virtue and ability. And after listening to a discourse on Vipassana given by the Sayadaw and observing his serene and noble demeanor, Sir Wu Twin had no difficulty in deciding that Mahasi Sayadaw was the meditation teacher he has been looking for. So in 1947, Buddhasasana Nugha Association was founded at Rangoon, and then so many things with scriptural learning and practice of the Dhamma, all things happen there. And this Sir Wu Twing donated to the association a plot of land in Hermitage Road, and then ever since it was quite improving. Erection of the Post Meditation Center in 1978. The center occupied an area of 19.6 acres, and then slowly started building. And then after the Second World War, Sayadaw alternated his residence between his native Seikun and then also Taung Waing Gale Mountain. Meanwhile, Burma had regained independence on 4th January 1948. By the way, Sri Lanka gained independence on 4th February 1948. So 1 month before Sri Lanka gained independence, Myanmar also gained independence. So Mahasi Sayadaw also spearheaded another very powerful tradition, uh, Buddhist meditation, and there is quite a little bit of slight difference between Pa Auk and Mahasi Sayadaw tradition anyway. So that is again very important. And then S.N. Goenka. S.N. Goenka's influence to the world of Buddhism again is really, really remarkable. Goenka's tradition and how he became from a very powerful entrepreneur, and how he changed his lifestyle and he became a meditation master. It's really, really remarkable. And in today's world, especially in the Theravada world, if we talk about meditation, these three meditation centers are the schools of meditation are the most prominent in the world. One is Paok Sayadaw, and the other one is Mahasi Sayadaw, and then S.N. Goenka, Vipassana tradition. S.N. Goenka was a layperson. He lived for the rest of his life as a layperson, whereas Mahasi Sayadaw and Mahasi uh, uh, Pauk Sayadaw, they are Buddhist monks. And Pauk Sayadaw is still alive. S.N. Goenka, he passed away just a few years ago. And Mahasi Sayadaw also passed away. So, but their movements are still very, very well running. So, what happens in Vipassana centers? There is in India, in Igatpuri, there is a meditation center with 5,000 small kutis for practitioners. They can practice there. So, in Goenka tradition, they give you like 3 days retreat, 10 days retreat, and then 30 days, 45 days, 90 days, and all these extensive retreats are um, provided by Goenka centers, and all these Goenka centers are volunteer based. They do not charge for any of those services that they do. Even if you attend a 10 days retreat, they would not charge you. They would not ask you to pay, and if you like, you can of course give some donations, and all the activities are run by just volunteers. Whosoever attend a retreat, 10 days retreat, maybe for the other 10 days retreat, that person would become a volunteer. So everything is free, of course. Everything is very simple, and absolute silence is maintained all throughout the retreats. And these places are really remarkable places to meditate. If you want to learn some meditation, there are some places here in California too. You can go have a look. Just check. I had a 10 days retreat with Goenka tradition too. When I was in India, I went to Jaipur in Rajasthan, and I attended a 10 days retreat in, I think, 1999 something. Yeah. So I really like Goenka's tradition too, and his teachings, and he does not use any of the idols. And I think that way, even the Muslim communities in the Middle East, they also follow his meditation system, because Muslim people do not like idol worship, and Goenka ji is not promoting idol worship either. He is very simple, and uh, he completely focuses on meditation with very simple language. And there are a lot of videos of him. All the volunteer teachers will be there to guide you, but most of the teachings are done by Goenka's videos. That's how it happens. Okay, so next one. Okay, there is another important Thai monk called Ajahn Bhuri Datta, and Venerable Acharya Mun Bhuri Datta Thera, spiritual leader of another Thai tradition. And Venerable Acharya Mun Bhuri Datta is a towering figure in contemporary Thai Buddhism. He was widely revered and respected during his lifetime for the extraordinary courage and determination he displayed in practicing the ascetic way of life, and for his uncompromising strictness in teaching his many disciples. During the 50 years since his death, he has assumed an exalted status in Buddhist circles, and thus remains an overshadowing presence whose life and teachings have become synonymous with the Buddha's noble quest for self-transformation. Although this monk, Acharya Moon, pronounced like Acharya Man, uh, he has left no written record of his own, and his biography, compiled by one of his close disciples some 20 years after his death, and is largely responsible for introducing his life, his achievements, and his teaching to a broad section of Buddhist society. Through the widespread popularity of this book, many Thai Buddhists have been given fresh hope that the spiritual liberation which the Buddha claimed to the world over 2,500 years ago, and which has been attained by so many aspirants over the succeeding centuries, still accessible in today's modern world. So, Ajahn Mun or Man Bhuridatta's Venerable Acharya Man Bhuridatta Thera's contribution and leadership also is really important in uh, Theravada tradition. And maybe I will come back to another great Buddhist scholar here, what we call Venerable Valpola Rahula. Okay, I think you know already. You have read his book. He was a Sri Lankan monk, and he was born in 1907 and he died in 1997. So he lived 90 years. And he was a scholar and a writer, and he received traditional training and education in his native Sri Lanka before studying at the University of Calcutta and then Sorbonne in Paris. He held a chair of Northwestern University, Illinois, and he was the vice chancellor of Vidyodaya University, currently known as the University of Jayawardenepura. He is widely regarded as one of the most influential scholars of Buddhist tradition during his time. His book, What the Buddha Taught, remains highly influential. So, What the Buddha Taught and Dr. Valpola Rahula, his contribution to Buddhism and the scholarship is really very powerful, and he has done so many good things too. So, Venerable Rahula. He also has written other books too. He has written What the Buddha Taught in 1959 and History of Buddhism in Ceylon, the Anuradhapura period, 3rd century BC to 10th century AD. So if you are interested in learning about Buddhism in Ceylon, this is another very good book. Humor in Pali Literature and Other Essays in 1997. And then The Heritage of the Bhikkhu, a short history of the Buddhist education, Bhikkhu in Education, Culture and Social and Political Life, 1974. Heritage of Bhikkhu, 1974. And Zen and Taming of the Bull, towards the definition of Buddhist thought, 1978, and The Heritage of the Bhikkhu, the Buddhist Tradition of Service, 2003. These are some of his books. When I was studying for my teacher training uh, uh, diploma, I met Venerable Rahula. I remember I he was a big hero to us those days because we loved to listen to his speeches, and he was very brave, and also his writing is very simple language. It's very easy going. I loved reading his books, and especially what the Buddha taught also taught me many things. When I still follow like to read that book whenever I need. And so we talked about Venerable. Uh, okay, I want to talk about another very important, very influential Buddhist monk. He is the founder of Fo Guang Chan, and he's from Taiwan, but I think originally he's from China, mainland China, and then he moved to Taiwan, and then he established Fo Guang Chan. Some years ago, I think maybe 2012 something, I visited that wonderful, amazing temple, Fo Guang Chan temple. And then years later, I did know that I visited uh, the University of the West for when I wanted to pursue my PhD, and that was actually part of Fo Guang Chan University of the West. So Master Xing again, such a wonderful person, and his charismatic leadership as a Buddhist leader in the Mahayana Buddhist world. He's very compassionate monk, and he's also a very wise monk. And here in Hacienda Heights, in Los Angeles, there is a beautiful temple called Shilai Temple, and University of the West was actually previously called it was called Shilai University, and later it was called Shilai University of the West. But Shilai Temple is still there, and it's a beautiful temple. If you haven't visited that, you must visit this amazing temple, um, University Shilai Temple in Hacienda Heights. And Master Xing has spearheaded the movement with over 150 temples and including several universities, including University of the West, and there is another university in Australia and also in Taiwan, and so many temples everywhere. And so Master Xingyan's contribution as a great Buddhist leader is truly amazing. And Buddha's Light International Association, Asian and then so many publications. Humanistic Buddhism is a very powerful campaign led by Master Ching, and Humanistic Buddhism is a blueprint for the life. And you better have a look at that book also if you get some time. And he has written so many books, and among them Humanistic Buddhism, A Blueprint for Life, Let Go Move On, Between Ignorance and Enlightenment, A Life for Pluses and Minuses, Between Ignorance and Enlightenment, Pearls of Wisdom, Prayers for Engaged Living, Family and Morality, Encouragement and Hope, Being Good, Buddhist Ethics for Everyday Life, Cloud and Water, and Guide to Chinese Buddhist Meditation, Humble Table, Wise Fare, Hospitality for the Heart, Humble Table, Wise Fare, Gift for Life, Buddha Nature Stories to instruct and inspire, and the list goes on and on. So many wonderful contributions to Buddhist literature and also his social welfare activities, especially for Buddhist education. Master Singh's contribution, and he has provided so many hundreds of disciples, monks and nuns. They are all running very, very great temples, institutes in many parts of the world. So I would really like to consider him as a really, really wonderful Buddhist leader today. I want to talk about this Dharma Master. Uh, Dharma Master. Uh, this is okay. Okay, Dharma Master Cheng Yen. Dharma Master Cheng Yen was born in 1937 in Qingshui, a small town in Taichung Country, Taiwan. As her father's brother was childless at a young age, he was adopted by him and his wife to raise as their own, a common practice in the era. When Dharma Master Cheng Yen was around 7, she experienced the air raids that the Second World War brought upon Japanese-occupied Taiwan. What she witnessed deeply imprinted upon her young mind the cruelty of war. Throughout her growing years, she had many questions about life and its meaning. I was just referring to Suchi Foundation's introduction to biography of the Dharma Master Cheng Yen. And Dharma Master Cheng Yen also spearheaded a beautiful movement called Suchi. And this foundation, Suchi Foundation, is an amazingly powerful volunteer social welfare movement. And they help so many people around the world whenever there is something, some natural disaster, something like that. They would be ready, and every time something like that happened, they would be some of the first respondents to the disaster site. I remember when tsunami struck in Sri Lanka in 2005, Suchi Foundation volunteers, they were the first to land in our country. And it's like they were ready already, they were prepared to come. That much preparation they already had. And that is the kind of professionalism they showed. And Suchi Foundation, if you go to Suchi, any Suchi center here, and there are so many medical centers and so many other social welfare activities run by Suchi. And they are really, really amazingly hospitable people. Once I went to a Suchi center in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and I was really surprised and impressed by their amazing hospitality. And when I visited, I just had you know sudden visit, and I never had any appointment to go there. But when I've been there, somebody was waiting, and then they took us having a temple visit that they took us all around and explained everything. And by the time they finished, and they gave us a beautiful gift and such wonderful. I felt so touched by their amazing hospitality, and they are truly wonderful people too. Very kind, very compassionate people, and these are all Dharma Master Cheng Ying's vision. So these people are such wonderful leaders, Buddhist leaders, community leaders. And I think in Indonesia, the headquarters is of this Suchi Foundation is in Indonesia. And I heard in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur alone, there are like 70,000 volunteers working for Suchi. So you can imagine how much dedication, how much power and strength that this foundation has. And they are all working very tirelessly for the benefit of the many. So, Dharma Master Cheng Yin. So, then you can also talk about Buddhism in Korea. I think it's good to talk about Buddhism in Korea. I wish I know more about Buddhism in Korea. I don't know much. I'm not really good at Korean Buddhism, but I have visited Korea, and I visited Songwonsa Temple, and also I have visited Unmunsa Temple. So they are so beautiful and in the middle of jungles. And one was meditation center for mostly Buddhist monks were there. They wake up early morning 3:30 every single day, and they meditate, and they bow 108 times. And then it was so still reverberating in the back of my mind. My short visit to that beautiful temple. And Nunmunsa is a nunnery. There were like 300 something Buddhist nuns, and they were so busy working and cultivating. They all do everything by themselves. They plant vegetables and all those things. They do cleaning, everything they do by themselves. Very well organized. Joke Oda is the biggest Buddhist order in South Korea, and so many ancient historical temples are there, and Korean Buddhism has a very powerful influence and also contribution to the Buddhist world. So I recommend you also have a look at some of those Buddhist temples and their Buddhist leaders, and including our university, also run by Korean Buddhist bhikkhuni. And so we really would like to pay respect to her for introducing and initiating this beautiful international university of the East. Okay, and Buddhism in Japan also is very powerful. Buddhism actually was introduced to Japan from Korea when there was a war between Japan and Korea. They are still not so friendly, but Buddhism actually has kind of bridged the gap between them, and So um, Buddhism has influenced the lifestyle in Japan. I have visited uh, the great Buddha at Kamakura. The world's largest bronze Buddha statue is there. And I have visited Nara, a very ancient historical capital. Buddhist ruins are there, Buddhist temples are there, Kyoto, and very, very wonderful temples are there in uh, Japan too. Zen Buddhist practice is very famous in Japan. And yeah, so um, yet again, I'm not a very qualified scholar to who have learned about Buddhism in Japan, and so I recommend you have a better look at the Korean and Japanese and even Chinese Buddhism. And yeah, so when we talk about Buddhism in China, also it has a very, very long history, and how around uh, first century something, when Buddhism was introduced to China during Han Dynasty, 150, by some Buddhist monks. Um, so at time, Buddhism was not even part of that country. And one of the key forces of Buddhism's success was Taoism. To help the Chinese comprehend Buddhist concepts, Buddhists borrowed ideas from Taoism via the Chinese language. Both Buddhism and Taoism benefited from this exchange. Taoists expanded their ideas about the cosmos and ways to structure their monastic orders. Buddhists gained a lexicon that made it easier to teach their tradition. Somehow, Taoism, Confucianism were local religions, but somehow the Chinese community adopted, welcomed Buddhism also for their powerful spiritual energy and the teachings. So from time and again, Buddhism was sponsored by some kings, while some others did not really necessarily support. And Buddhism survived, and one of the world's biggest Buddha statues are there in China, and so many beautiful Buddhist temples. I really want to go visit some of those Buddhist temples, especially the one in Sichuan, the giant Buddha statue. And yeah, so through Silk Road, through maritime Buddhism, maritime trade, Buddhism also reached mainland China, and during the past, Sri Lanka also had a lot of wonderful Buddhist connections with Buddhism. And yeah, so with regard to Buddhism in China, Zen Buddhism, Chang Buddhism, Pure Land Buddhism, and Shaolin monasteries are very famous. So some of those great leaders, maybe you can have a look and a little bit more. And so I think with that we conclude today, and we talked a lot about. There are so many other contemporary Buddhist leaders too, like Bhante Kirinde Dhammananda, one of the most powerful Buddhist monks. He was also from Sri Lanka, and he went to Malaysia and Singapore, and he introduced Theravada Buddhism to those countries. And his simple but powerful teaching styles and has influenced those countries, that region. Even today, he passed away some years ago, and his teachings are available. I have visited his temple, Buddhist Mahavihara in Kuala Lumpur, and I noticed so many Buddhist people over there are still talking about this wonderful monk. And there are so many Buddhist groups in Malaysia who have found their own small groups and activities, Buddhist centers everywhere in Malaysia and even in Singapore. There are many people who really respect Venerable Kirinde Dhammananda. And many simple language books, books in very simple language, Buddhist books are there written by Venerable Dhammananda, and they are also very popular. In Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, for example, I remember if you go to that temple, you can see books everywhere. Even if you go to the shrine room area, there are so many book racks. People can freely take them, read them, take home whatever they want. That's fine. And there are so many CDs, compact discs. You can also listen to the Dhamma talks, not only by Venerable Kirinde Dhammananda, but also from the other people, scholars, who Buddhist Mahavihara is publishing many books, and also they provide books they distribute to other people. And then there is another monk in Hong Kong, Venerable Bodhagama Chandivana, who is in Sri Lanka. He's running a Buddhist university there. And he also has done so many good things by translating, by printing so many Buddhist books and freely making them available to the world. I also remember Pariyatti, for example, part of Goenka school. They are also providing Tripitaka books. They used to do it in the past. I remember so many temples and schools and universities were provided free of cost the entire Tripitaka. And they are also doing a wonderful service by helping. There are many other monks, there are many other nuns, and many other organizations who show lots and lots of leadership qualities. So, with that, we conclude for today. And I would like you to go through any of these Buddhist leaders' story and write a simple summary of their life and their contribution towards Buddhism as a modern day Buddhist leader or a contemporary Buddhist leader. With that, I conclude. And I also would like to remind you, and we will have final presentation. You can select any of the topics and then work on your presentation for 7 minutes. And please also write one paper on for the final presentation with 5 pages. Okay, um, I will upload the details to our Google Drive folder. Okay, with that we conclude. Thank you so much and wish you all a very wonderful and happy week ahead.